Cool. Welcome everybody to the third edition to our Navigating a Channel Career with me, Zoe Chatley, Managing Director of the Channel Recruiter. And today I'm very privileged to have Richard Eglon, Chief Marketing Officer at Nebula Global Services with us. Hello, Richard.
Hello, nice to see you. So,
It's always cringe having to do those big intros, isn't it? Like having to get all the words right and make sure you don't fumble everything. I think it's the worst part of doing this. I don't want to be robotic when we say it.
no,
Just
no.
nice and natural. Thank you ever so much for joining me today, Richard. Obviously, you and I have we sort of known each other for the last year or so, haven't we? And then gotten to know each other more through the channel community, which has been just absolutely brilliant. And you introduced me to Yvonne and the channel community. And obviously, this is where the podcast will be posted on the channel community's podcast page. Um, Today, as I've mentioned, we'll be talking about you and how you have navigated your career through the channel, which is, the primary focus of what, the market I recruit in, but obviously where you work as well. Um, if you could really just by starting telling us a little bit about your background, where you went to school and, where you grew up, and then how you started your career, really, where you first started working and building up to the person you are today in your career.
Okay, yeah, no, okay. Thank you, Zoe, and thank you for the opportunity to have this chat. It's yeah, I know we've spoke offline many times about our different experiences, and because we're always so much looking forward with things, I think sometimes
Mm,
it's quite nice to reflect of where we've come from and what we've been involved with and the people we've met.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean from yeah from my point of view, I've been involved with many sort of facets of the channel, if you like, and that journey started relatively at a young age. Back in sort of my early 20s, I got introduced into technology with my first role, which was for a telecommunications business. So they
Yeah.
were a hardware manufacturer at the time, and yes, they were based where I am now on the south coast, near Portsmouth here. But yeah, I grew up in a sort of small fishing town up on the northeast Yorkshire coast called Whitby, right?
Yeah, yeah. Still holding on to that Yorkshire accent as well. I always pick that up with you.
Yes, it's something that hasn't slipped.
No.
But when I go back to Yorkshire, they say I don't recognise my voice anymore. I'm probably somewhere in the Midlands, maybe. I don't.
Yeah, yeah.
A bit of a hybrid of both, but
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
no, it was. I mean that sort of when I go back to sort of that point, it was very much a case of I think as far as I thought I was going to travel was maybe 50 miles down the road to York and
Yeah.
work in York the rest of my life. The world sort of was a bigger place then to some degree. This was before
Mm.
obviously digital and social media and everything else that's come to fruition since. But yeah, I got offered a role down here on the south coast, and I think at the time it was very much a case of an opportunity I wanted to take, and I think from that early age, my main driver for taking that role was very much of its location.
Right.
Uh, the location was close to the beach. It was on the coast, and I grew up on the coast, obviously up in North Yorkshire. So
Okay.
it's strange that I got offered a job in London, one in High Wycombe, and the other on the south coast. And
Yeah.
they're all very good jobs, all very interesting roles, but I chose it primarily. The differentiator for me was its location at the time.
Yeah. It made
So
sense. Yeah.
yeah, so I suppose from that perspective, it's sort of in your 20s. It's very much a bit of a whirlwind. It's a case
Mm.
of at the time I didn't have a car. I think I had
Yeah.
3 days to buy a car, pack the car up with all my possessions, move
Yeah.
down, move down south without anywhere to live. I stayed in a B&B for the first week, and then that was a time where again there was nothing online to go and search for where you could stay on, renting on Rightmove or whatever it might be. It was,
Yeah, crikey. You
I
had
don't
to
know if
go
you,
to the paper, didn't you? Have a look in the
it
papers.
was exactly that. It was the paper, or it used in the newsagent windows. It used to be the little
That's
cards.
right. Yeah, crikey. We're showing our age now.
I
Even like
know,
I can remember all of that.
I know, I know. I think if there's anyone in the 20s, early 30s listening to us now, they won't have a clue what we're talking about. So, but no,
Yeah.
that's really where it all started.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And so you got the position initially in York, you said, and then so it was that you then went further down south.
Yeah, what it was I thought I was only going to go as far as somewhere like York in terms of,
Yeah,
that was the big wide world for me at that moment in time. And
yeah,
so to actually, get offered a job in essence, the other side of the country,
yeah,
right down the
yeah,
south coast was, at the time, I was quite well traveled in the sense I'd done
yeah,
some traveling and stuff in my time. But actually, you sort of just got on and did it. You didn't really think
yeah,
too much, and maybe that was because there wasn't as many influencing factors as there is for people today.
yeah,
If I think of my children right now, and
yeah,
they're getting to their late teens, and
yeah,
that they're looking for what's next in their life. Well, they're
yeah,
much more influenced through what they're seeing on social media.
yeah, yeah. That drives them more these days. Yeah,
It's that sort of, they almost in their mind have a better idea. They think they've got a better idea of what they want, or what they
yeah,
want to do, or who they want to be. And I think when I was that age, it was very much you just took every day as it came. It was
yeah,
almost like, right, today I've been given this opportunity, and I'm going to
yeah,
do the best I possibly can,
hmm,
to sort of, to do a good job. And
yeah,
it's because everything was about still reputation as it is now, but it
yeah.
was very much a case of that reputation wasn't shared on a broader network like social media. That
No,
reputation was much more local. It was much more
yeah,
provisional in that sense.
yeah,
So there was probably even more pressure on you to do a good job, because it's
yeah,
like your local tradesman in a local area. If they do a bad job, well, that's them
mm,
blackballed for that local area of doing trade, right? So
yeah.
that's really what most professions were like then.
Yeah, definitely. So what was that position you took then? That first position down there?
Oh yeah, so yeah, my role has evolved over the years as well. That's for sure. But I wanted to be a fighter pilot, believe it or not. When I
Oh,
was
wow.
at school, I was adamant I was going to go into the RAF and
Yeah.
train to be a fighter pilot. That was, my ambition at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't quite good enough at football or anything like that. So that was what I wanted to do. So I think that piece in that sense was all scuppered as soon as I found out. Actually, my eyesight wasn't too good. I was noticing,
Oh,
as you read down a page, sometimes you get this older in life, but you're reading halfway down a page and everything gets a bit blurry. So
yeah.
yeah, I had to change all my plans. Pretty much a case of, right,
Oh,
that's what I had my heart
damn
set.
those eyes.
Yeah, damn those eyes. And I think to myself, okay, well, what do I want to do? And for
Yeah.
me, I remember walking down the school corridor at the time, and they used to have the big
Mm,
notice boards with posters up and
mm,
that type of thing. Again, before
yeah.
social media,
Yeah.
and I saw a poster. I was reading a poster to do with graphic design. So that
Okay.
I started reading what that entailed and what that was about, and
Yeah.
oh, that sounds interesting. And anyway,
Yeah.
fast forward 5 years, I did 2 years of graphic design at college, and then I got selected to go to Nottingham University to do 3 more years degree course in graphic design, and
Nice.
I absolutely loved it. It was
Yeah.
it was something I just found my sort of value in something that I really enjoyed doing. So
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
that in essence, I exhibited my work at something called New Designers down in the
Okay.
business centre in Islington.
Yeah.
And actually, what was great about that was if you got selected to go to that from each university around the country,
Yeah.
the people looking for your type of skills came to you.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in essence, it was like a trade fair, a jobs fair as we know it today, but
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
fantastic. So that's where I got offered the three roles I
Yeah.
mentioned before,
Yeah. Yeah.
and obviously selecting the one down in Portsmouth. So graphic design was I suppose my segue into that marketing field because the first job
Yeah.
I had was an in-house designer within a marketing
Yeah.
department.
Yeah, which makes sense. And you are, I was from the time I've known you, you're a very creative, individual as well. So having that eye back then for, creative design, it does lend itself really nicely. I see CVs all the time where people have, like you, started in a graphic design position, but, learn and, with all the software that's out now and everything, they take everything, do a bit of everything and then they start progressing through the ranks from graphic design to marketing assistant upwards. So how long were you, I suppose, an active graphic designer and creative for?
Um, to some degree, I still am.
Yeah,
Because
I'd expect so.
that's something you never really lose in terms of your passion. You
Mm,
obviously you do less of doing the do. So where I'd have known Adobe software inside out originally, that skill set's gone now. It's
yeah,
very
yeah.
minimal, and I rely on my team to do those type of things. But yeah, I would say in that first role, I had sort of 3 years of really, really getting involved with sort of doing the do, and that the graphic design function. Then this was pretty much in the mid '90s, so the
Yeah.
internet was still in its real infancy. So
Yes.
web
Yeah.
web page design was very restricted from a design
Yeah.
perspective
Yeah.
because of download speeds and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
it was still primarily, things like physical brochures, direct mail,
Hmm.
exhibition stands, and things like
Yeah.
CeBIT over in Germany that we used to go to. So that sort of happened for the first 3 years, and then I got headhunted for a role in a sort of a telecom software business, which
Okay.
they just got quite a lot of sort of venture capitalist funding to go on a big growth global sort of
Yeah.
acquisition trail, and the role there went into that's where I got more involved with sort of the brand side. So I went in as a
Yeah.
global brand manager in that role,
Ah,
and
okay.
and so that involved, I had teams of people and agencies helping me sort of do the
Yeah.
do, if you like, for
Yeah.
creating that brand, but it was more involved with the brand side and creating those brand values and the value
Right.
proposition
Yeah.
and I suppose that was really where it was a light bulb moment of saying, okay,
Mm.
well, this is really important. But I was working even closer then with things like the PR and comms team, or
Right.
I was working with the product marketing team and
Yeah.
working with sort of the wider business units, and
Yeah.
that's really where I said, right, this is where I know where I want to go now. This is
Hmm.
sort of the path that I want to take over the next few years.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose, I mean, when you start your career, I think a lot of people, especially when they know what area they're going to go down, take snippets from everybody, and that's where you learn and grow. And is that what you did? If you were to look back now about how you learned it, because have you got any sort of formal qualifications in marketing? Was it all originally just the graphic design side?
Yeah, so originally it was graphic design,
Yeah,
and over time, and a big thing I'm very proud of is was to get my chartered marketer status,
yeah,
with the institute. So
yeah.
that was a big milestone for me. That was something as I went sort of from that senior marketing manager role into that
Mm,
marketing director piece.
yeah,
Around that time, I was very focused on, yeah, because I'd been part of the Chartered Institute of Marketing with other qualifications, and
Yeah.
that's sort of the pinnacle in terms of, in terms
Yeah.
of wanting to learn and keep learning, because obviously
Yeah.
you get evaluated every 12 months, so that keeps
Yeah.
you relevant, it keeps you
Yeah.
those, it keeps you fresh. So I
Yeah.
found what was good about going down that route was it's something I did aligned to the role I was doing. It wasn't extracurricular open university type stuff. This was right,
Mm.
okay, they give you the framework that you need to be focusing on things with. They give you the platform to sort of upskill yourself and everything else. But
Yeah.
actually, then it's down to the projects I'm doing in the business today is
Yeah.
something that gets evaluated through that scheme. So that was sort of another sort of step on that progression for me
Yeah. Yeah.
was it give me a framework from then, which was probably 12 years ago now, through to where I am today. It's I'm still using that similar framework that keeps evolving, of course.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but yeah, it gives you a bit of focus, because sometimes I think in our roles, and as we get busier and more senior, it becomes more isolated sometimes, and
Mm.
sometimes it becomes harder to motivate yourself, because you're there to motivate your teams and everyone
Yeah.
around, but who's motivating you, right? Who's
Yeah. Who are
motivating?
you accountable to? And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. I think it'd be interesting to, I think certainly as we chat to understand how you do keep yourself motivated as well. And I think what I like to do is we sort of end with any sort of top tips for people, wanting to get into a marketing career. So we can talk about that, because I'd be really keen to understand that now, because you have reached, now a very, very high level in marketing. But bringing it back obviously to where you are now. So you're in the telecom sector. So we're sort of in the technology realms now and entering the world of channel, really. Because,
Yeah,
I think people have to remember technology is so vast. It isn't just IT, it isn't just consumer electronics or telecoms or whatever. It is actually everything. And there are a lot of crossovers in the industry. You just, as a recruiter, I have to learn all the different terminologies and that. I don't know technically a lot of stuff, but I know the terminologies. But so you're in the sort of technology realms now, in a brand development role. You've done your CIM, or you're doing your CIM at this point.
I was starting to think about the entry level to that
Yeah.
program, which sort of came on in a following role.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. And how long were you in that position for then, Richard?
Well, the irony with that role, it was a fast growth business, and they
Okay.
recruited, and you'd have been in this position before, I guess, so where there's a lot of recruitment done in a short space of time, right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of momentum built, and
Oh,
this
that was.
this
Mm.
this was sort of in the early 2000s, and then the market dropped. The market just overnight in the telecom space sort of dropped. So
Wow.
I was made redundant. So this this
Yep.
was this was sort of the first time ever that I've been in a position where I'm now being made redundant. You've got to go through that sort of with your own mindset and your own sort of value, and thinking, oh well,
Mm.
yeah, you don't feel like you're worthy in terms of what you're doing. You feel, well, why have they got rid of me and not them?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that, all those sort of natural emotions, and
Yeah.
you know what that was for me? That was a real turning point
Yeah.
in just in some degree, sort of just growing up and taking a much more pragmatic view of what your career is about. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is that probably gave me at an early stage, and probably at the right time, because I was on a bit of a crest of a wave. I've just been headhunted,
Mm.
gone into a
Mm.
new role. Everything
Yeah.
is fantastic. I bought a new car, and done
Yeah.
a house, and then all of a sudden the rug is whipped from under you, right?
Yeah.
And that impacts not just you, it's your family and
Yeah.
those around you. But
Yeah.
what it did do, and what it has done to today, I never I never take for granted what I have. and I never take for granted the position I'm in. I
Mm.
feel privileged to be doing what I'm doing because it's something I really enjoy. But
Yeah.
I'm also aware that nobody in the business, from the CEO down, is indispensable, right?
Yeah.
We're all there to provide some value to to the
Yeah.
wider business to
Yeah.
is trying to be achieved. So
Yeah.
what that did quite quickly was a few things. One was um, sort of build a strong network of people around me, of people I can trust. It
Yeah.
was also whatever I do, always be myself and always be try to be authentic
Yeah.
and be about. For me, it's that sort of strong moral compass I talk about. I've talked about before,
Mm.
but that's really important to me because
Yeah. Yeah.
your job doesn't make you who you are, right? I
No.
always say I love my job and it's a big part of my life and it always has been over the years.
Mm.
But actually, if you take Richard out of my role as a CMO, I'm still Richard. I'm
Yeah.
still I'm still the same guy with the same values. Hopefully, that's what comes across to other
Yeah.
people. Whereas some people along the way, that I've met have, it's almost like the job becomes, especially as you become more senior, can become more of an ego
Mm.
blanket. It's a bit
Mm.
more of
Yeah.
this, well, I'm important because I'm in an important role and
Yeah.
I'm on
Yeah.
a team. And
Yeah.
actually it doesn't, it's what you stand for, it's what you're about. And I think sort of young people coming into the industry today, yeah, that's what they're more interested in. As
Mm.
part of being part of the channel community like yourself, the reason I'm involved with things like that is trying to stay relevant,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you want to be adding value where you possibly can, but you can learn from a 20-year-old as well as a 60-year-old and anywhere in
Yeah.
between. So
Yeah.
so I think that was an inflection point in terms of being made redundant,
Mm.
and it
Yeah.
really triggered and accelerated more of a laser focus for me of what does success look like for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
regardless of the business I'm in or the role I'm doing. It's more what is it that I want, because if I'm in a good place, the business
Yeah.
are going to benefit from that anyway, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. How long were you looking for a new role for after you were made redundant?
Well, again, I suppose that was the first time when I actually set up my own business at that time,
Ah. Yeah.
because there wasn't really much out there of anything of interest, or because
Mm.
the market had sort of crashed, a little bit at the time. But through the network of some people I met in that role,
Yeah.
they said, "Oh, actually, Rich, you can help me with this. We need to do some branding of this company." And this was in other sectors. This wasn't in the
Mm.
this
Mm.
was this was everything from schools, private schools, through
Yeah.
to wanted to rebrand their logo and do a new brochure and get some
Mm. Mm.
some new sort of values and core values sort of positioned out there. And so
Yeah.
I remember I set up a business. It's called Spoon Creative, and Spoon Creative lasted sort of probably about 18 months, 2 years. I
Okay.
was
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that, and that I enjoyed that, and
Yeah.
what that brought, I suppose, into my marketing career was how to run a business,
Yeah.
how to understand how cash is king, how
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
understand, well, you can have the best opportunities out there, but if time to revenue is too long, then that's going to kill a small business, right?
Yeah.
It's those pieces where you're trying to build up relationship with people in those customers, so you do get paid on time, and so
Yeah.
you start to understand the balance sheet and the P&L and stuff like that. So that they were new skills for me. So
Yeah.
they were more broader commercial and
Yeah, I
business.
was going to say more commerciality there. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, like you said, it's really key. I've obviously experienced similar through setting up my own business. I was, very just recruitment. And then since setting up my own, you have to adapt, you have to learn and grow. And I think that's what, we pick up a lot through people who have seen success and, stayed at companies and sort of grown is you've got to grow and learn and, make mistakes, learn from them and be open to learning new skills and look at areas where you're weaker and think,
Yeah,
okay, well, I need to learn that. And that's not just, I think, skills in the workplace. I think sometimes it's also a skill as a person, as a human in your personality as well.
yeah,
If you're, not assertive enough, if you're not open enough with your team and you need to become more open and approachable, there's all these different skills that add to your humility as a person as well. Um,
definitely.
Obviously if you set that business up on your own, I'm assuming you were on your own. Did you recruit anybody in to support you, or was it purely yourself?
Yeah, it was purely a sole trader in essence,
Yeah.
and then I had partners that I could sort of bring in, when the workload was more freelancing and that type of stuff,
Right. Yeah.
and 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 I sort of, and I enjoyed it, and I learned a lot in that,
Mm,
that space of time. But ironically, one of my clients, through that process was where I got back into full-time employment. So
yeah.
they offered me a role, and I was starting a young family at the time, and the regular income and
Nice.
all those things.
Yeah.
So yes, it was also just another sort of gateway into what was next for me. And
Yeah.
I think I would say to, people embarking in their 20s now on their career and where to go, I would almost just keep your mind open,
Yeah.
and you are going to get knockbacks. You're going to get a lot of knockbacks, and you need to be
Mm,
resilient, but you need to still believe in yourself.
yes.
You don't
Yeah.
you don't you don't want to create. It's not about, I suppose, deceiving people in saying, well, yes, I'm this, and actually you're not. It's, be
Yeah.
genuine, be who you are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think most people now, and I don't know what you think, is people people primarily recruit on attitude and behavior,
Yeah.
and rather than on skills, because skills are evolving all the time and can be taught, and you can learn skills as you go.
Yeah, yeah, no, we're definitely seeing more of that, and then across many different roles as well. It's you mentioned about resilience, and that is something that we felt people have lacked a lot, or there's an expectation and entitlement, and like we know hard work and learning and growing and being okay with being knocked back and building on that, I think is something that it's sort of maybe lacking a little bit sometimes. So when we're interviewing on attitude and personality, we're looking out for these key attributes in these people and alongside the competencies to do
Yeah,
the job.
yeah,
When we hired for you, there were, you wanted some core competencies, but I know you were looking at the personality of the person as somebody that could, learn and be open to taking on different projects and growing from that, and somebody you could somebody's a bit of a sponge. We hear that quite a lot. We want somebody who's a
yeah,
sponge that can soak everything up,
yeah.
and then grow and learn from that. So, that's
No,
certainly something we're seeing, especially with the more junior roles.
yes. Yeah.
That are coming through. I think that's what's sometimes missing, and we're really looking out for it. Graduates we're recruiting and but we're also trying to educate our hiring managers to be really open-minded. Sometimes we get hiring teams that are very short-sighted
Yeah.
and they're just focused on, well, we need this skill, this skill, this skill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're never necessarily going to get 100% fit. You have to be open to an 80% fit and find the right aptitude and attitude to do the job and build around that. And once we can kind of get that through,
Yeah.
we end up placing some really, really good people into their organization. And you kind of get yeah, you were right. We do need to be a bit more open-minded and but we'll always try and find exactly what they want.
Yes.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes that person doesn't exist. And
Yes.
that's where we
Yeah.
have to open things up a little bit more. So going back to your career then, because I'm keen now to know, in 2007, was it you got into comms care?
Yeah, well, actually, earlier, full time, yes, but I was part of I used to work with the original team from Comscare at a previous business. So
Okay.
so
Yeah.
so this is where I headed up the
So you knew
marketing,
them. Yeah.
and this is where I went. From running my own business in back sort of more into the, I suppose, core channel type of role as the marketing manager at a business. So I worked with some of those guys, and
Yeah.
then Comscare was formed, and then
Yeah.
I in the early days, Comscare, I was heading up their marketing more as a
Yes.
freelance. So I was doing it as a
Ah,
freelance because
okay.
obviously it's a small business. So
Yeah.
I had other clients I could service as well and work
Yeah.
with. So, but yeah, I was involved probably from the beginning around 2002 with Comscare,
Crikey.
and
Okay.
and then over the years as they built their sort of business and the business sort of
Mm.
when it started gathering momentum, that's when I decided to go in at 2007 full time.
Right.
So again,
Yeah,
it
because you were
was
there a while, weren't you?
yes, yeah. So from probably 2002 to 2000 and sort of 15ish around there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went through the whole startup, and
Yeah.
sort of found a chap called Scott Yates, who unfortunately no longer with us, but Scott set it up in his
Mm.
garage with some of the other guys, and then
Yeah.
yeah, it was just a whirlwind journey that was, and
Crikey.
we just we just built so much momentum around that Cisco services market in the
Yeah.
UK,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, that ended up sort of gathering so much momentum and interest in the market. Then obviously fast forward a few years, and Ingram Micro came in and
I
obviously
was going to
acquired
say.
Comscare as well.
Yeah, that's right. Because they're based on the south, down south, weren't they? I always remember
Com, com,
Shawcom's covered.
Comscare were based up in Northwich and Cheshire.
Oh,
And
okay. I'm
yes,
thinking of
yeah,
another
they
company,
were up in
maybe.
Northwich and Cheshire. So they were sort of near sort of Knutsford. They were Crewe
Yeah,
originally, and then they moved a bit further north, and
that
that
makes
that just
sense.
that just actually that helped us open up recruitment hubs more closer to Manchester and obviously over into
Yeah,
Chester and Liverpool. So the,
yeah,
the reason for the move to Northwich from Crewe was actually opening up that growth piece. We're able to get the
yeah,
talent skill sets because this
yeah,
was when everyone was office based, right? So
yeah, yeah.
you needed to position your office close to those talent hubs.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did, I mean, you would have London, Birmingham, Manchester, and maybe Newcastle was like, through the country. And then, obviously, nowadays it's a lot easier because you can have remote and hybrid working thanks to COVID.
Yeah,
The only sort of maybe positive that it brought to us, I don't know.
yeah, maybe. Yeah,
But yeah, Crewe, that's where I remember them from. It wasn't the south, it was Crewe that I think I
yeah,
was thinking of. I don't know why I thought Crewe was on the south. My geography, not very good. But yeah, I mean, looking at, when we look at, say, your LinkedIn profile
yeah,
and you see like you were there full time for over 8 years,
yeah.
and then you go from working in, so hang on, when did they get acquired by Ingram? Was that around 2015?
Maybe about, I think it was about, was it 15, 16, something
Yeah,
around that time, wasn't it? Yes, yeah.
yeah. And then you went, obviously, so you ended up, your position there was marketing director. So you were
Yes.
you were very senior in that position. And was that, I suppose, the start of your quite senior career now?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the Comscare journey as marketing director, sort of in the latter years there was, I was part of the leadership team. We were,
Mm,
yeah, there was a much more broader function in terms of what I was involved with in that role, and
yeah,
that was probably sort of my first introduction into that
mm,
sort of almost that sort of that sort of boardroom environment where
yeah,
you very much marketing is one of many facets that you're actually discussing and
yeah,
going through and trying to improve on. So that
yeah,
that that
yeah,
was a big learning curve. That was really interesting. So
yeah,
yeah, and then obviously from that piece was very much as I moved over to Agilitas,
Yeah.
And that role, I've moved over to there as marketing director of
Yeah.
Agilitas, and where Comscare was sort of more of a privately owned business.
Mm,
Agilitas sort of was my first introduction into that sort of private equity world. So
yeah.
again, you're learning again. Yeah, so
Yeah.
everything, even though the marketing function remains the same and that remains the core
Mm,
throughout who I am and what I do,
yeah.
the the other areas that you're learning is around obviously the business aspects, the commercial aspects, the shareholder value, the comms you're having to do communications to different audiences. So
Yeah.
it and then couple that on where Comscare was primarily UK focused.
Yeah.
Agilitas were very much more of a global business, so a lot more
Yeah.
in mainland Europe and beyond.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
again, from a marketing perspective, you're sort of you're trying to digest sort of different marketplaces. You're trying to digest, okay, what does that mean around the sort of value proposition? How do we
Yeah.
pitch it to markets and building teams and sort of mechanisms
Mm.
to sort of facilitate that growth.
Yeah, definitely. And Agilitas as well, I suppose they are more on that kind of channel services provider scope, aren't they? Whereas Comscare were more, I would say the more distributor, because obviously Ingram's a distributor, but were Comscare a
Yeah, so
distributor or were they more on that kind of MSP side?
yeah, so Comscare originated primarily as a again a Cisco channel services provider
Yeah, yeah.
in the UK. So very much as a third party maintainer, alternative
Mm,
alternative and sort of complementary option to the vendor support.
yeah, yeah,
So that was very much in at a time where routing and switching and all that all that Cisco product suite at the time was in every office. It was in every
yeah, yeah,
so the support requirement for that was huge
yeah,
and what and so that was more around the Cisco piece in that sense, but still
yeah,
they were still selling through the channel
yeah,
as were and as are Agilitas. So
yeah.
Agilitas were just more focused on the hardware and the parts aspect of it and the
Mm,
logistics,
yeah,
whereas
yeah,
Comscare were the people, the engineering teams, and that type
yeah.
of stuff.
Like the physical entity almost more so.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
that makes sense. Yeah. On Agilitas, again, you were there for a good amount of time, and I felt like again you kind of grew with them as they were growing. I mean, they were obviously quite established, but you took help to take them from what was I don't know a relatively smallish although global entity into something a lot bigger to become again where you are now, obviously chief marketing officer. So you hit some really good highs across there. I'm conscious of time, but can you give us a bit of a
Yeah,
flavour about, your career at Agilitas and then obviously how you then got into Nebula?
yeah. So Agilitas, I think I went in there just off the back of the management buyout that was led by Sean, the CEO there, and
Yeah,
I think what Sean identified very quickly was very much about the brand. It was
yeah,
about understanding as a services business, your brand is building that equity in terms of
mm,
your brand is your people, it's your reputation,
mm,
it's the accumulation of many facets within a business, right? But
yeah,
it needs to be orchestrated in the right way, the right messaging, in the right marketplaces. It
yeah,
can't just be left to its own devices, if that makes sense.
mm,
So I think it was identified that sort of marketing and brand in terms of some of the achievements at Comscare was very
mm,
important to their future strategy.
yeah,
So Agilitas went in there and the idea, I think we were the first company. We were a parts logistics business in server and
yeah,
storage. So HP, IBM, Dell, all that good stuff,
yeah,
some microsystems. And
yeah,
and we sort of we pivoted that proposition and we introduced the first company that I'm aware of to introduce this inventory as a service.
Right.
And our big focus was about taking people out of inventory ownership,
Okay. Yeah.
because a lot of the MSPs, resellers at the time, and the SIs were
Mm.
trying to run a business and trying to pivot to be more of an MSP type business, while
Yeah.
still trying to do logistics, right? And
Yeah.
still trying to manage spare parts, and obviously the balance sheet and the impact that has of depreciation and
Mm.
all. And we're like, well, that's what we do. That's what our core is. So the big growth piece at Agilitas was positioning the business and the brand around this inventory as a service proposition. And
Yeah.
then obviously we had a fantastic team of people there from the leadership down, and and getting everybody working together to actually say, well, actually, let's disrupt the market. Let's go and
Mm.
say to people, well, we'll purchase your inventory from you, and you've got that headache goes overnight,
Yeah.
but we'll sell it back to you as a managed service,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it's hardware. It's not software. It's a hardware.
Yeah.
So that's one example of how we were able to sort of go on this sort of hyperscale journey, if you like. Of
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a moment in time, and
Yeah.
I go on a lot about everything has a moment in time. The Comscare journey was a moment in time where we
Mm.
were opportunists, where the market needed what we were offering, and we were quick to
Yeah.
adapt our proposition to suit that
Yeah.
marketplace at the time. That's why we were successful. Agilitas, we created our own market. We
Yeah.
created our own market of giving someone an option that's a bit different to what was
Mm.
currently being offered. And I think, yeah, as I went through that journey, and as that came towards the end of that into where I am with Nebula, Nebula, I think, you know, you never know what the future holds, right? But it really feels like this is Nebula's moment in time, and
Yeah.
you can only go on past experiences and gut feel.
Mm.
But the reason I say that is because I think a couple of things. Number one, the team at Nebula are fantastic.
Yeah.
I think I spoke to you about this before. The one objective I had of what's next for me after my
Yeah.
previous role was I just want to work with good people,
Yeah.
and obviously, yeah, I know I've known Ross a number of years, the CEO over at Nebula, and I've worked with our CSO Pete previously in Comscare, years
Yeah.
before, and then the wider team as well are sort of highly respected. Where I said these are guys I really think we can do something special with. The
Yeah.
proposition, the proposition is fantastic, and
Mm.
we're just about to announce our first sort of vendor global accreditation within a fast
Brilliant.
growing emerging vendor, which
Yeah.
is a game changer for us, because
Yeah.
we're not a third party maintainer in Nebula. Nebula provides services that support that industry. we're,
Yeah.
we're actually more aligned to the whole channel, from the vendor through to the distribution. We've got
Yeah.
distributor customers, we've got
A
reseller
proper
MSP
channel.
customers.
Yeah.
This is end-to-end channel services
Yeah.
as we know it. And because we've got the global footprint as well as the UK, that that has been a real game changer as well for us over the last sort of 12 months. And
Yeah.
why we're seeing 45% revenue growth last year, and you
Yeah.
know that's turning into profit growth as well, which we can then
Mm.
reinvest back in the business
Yeah.
into things like the brand, our services, and the back office support function. That you need that. Fundamentally, that is what we're about. That we're a people business, so you need good people driving those services.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it seems, what I've gathered from, the in particular the past two positions you've had, and now the reason you've gone into Nebula is you have grown as the business has grown, and that really attracts you. You see so much potential in these businesses,
Yeah,
and that's what's attracted you, um, and driven your career within these businesses, which
yeah,
I think if you were to give any advice to people wanting a marketing career
yeah.
within the industry, what would it be?
Oh, that is a good
Put you on the
question. I
spot.
think I know. So I think, and this is from my perspective. So our industry is primarily, from a marketing stance, is very much been vendor led, right? It's been vendor
Yeah,
led, with MDF programs, and that filters through distribution and resellers and so on, and
yeah,
campaigns are built, and there's a whole industry being built around that and being very
yeah,
successful at that, right? I've never been in that world, believe it or not. So I've
yeah,
always worked in sort of privately owned businesses
yeah,
that haven't had that MDF function coming into the marketing team to actually run campaigns and to
yeah,
do ROI and all that good stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
ours has always been our own money.
yeah,
So so marketing for me has been a slightly different approach. Now, the reason why I think that's really relevant today, and I'm seeing more and more of this to more marketing people I speak to in our industry, is the MDF world's still there and it's still important, and it's just evolving, right? It's just evolving, and it's trying to find its sort of equilibrium in some sense at the moment. But and that's why I think a lot of marketing people's roles have been made redundant, and
yeah,
people are struggling a little bit to find sort of where their sort of value and their sort of
yeah.
unique.
They're like place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So, and so yeah, what I would say to marketing people at the moment is just work on the skills you currently. I mean, generally, marketing people are fantastic. Yeah, they're very good at multitasking because we're
yeah,
having to deal with so many different. Yeah, one minute we're thinking strategy, another minute we're delivering something tactical, or we're
yeah,
having to come up with a new idea around a campaign. And so we're very generally creative and innovative people,
yeah,
and I think that's a real asset to any business in how that forms.
yeah,
I think I think what you've also got to realize is if you've been in a framework in your role that has been very much dictated by, let's say, a vendor, then
yeah,
actually coming out left field or right field to that sort of channel, if you like,
yeah,
um, you have to bring something different. You have to communicate. Now you might have that something different, but make
yeah,
sure you communicate it to the people you're speaking to. Make
yeah,
sure they're aware that you've actually got other skills outside of what your core competencies have
yeah,
been over the years. So so yeah, I would say there's that part. Be creative, be innovative, um, communicate out that message to as many of your network as possible. And
yeah.
I think what a lot of sort of marketing people have also probably not been as good at in the past is, and it's a bit of a busman's holiday for them. They're very good at doing
Mm,
the comms and the profile raising of the business that they're in,
yeah,
but they've been terrible at their own brand
yes, yeah,
because
yeah,
they've neglected their own brand, in all honesty, and
yeah,
and that's not a negative on them. That's just because they've been focused on doing what
yeah,
they're loyal to do. But you
yeah,
need you need to get the balance between both,
yeah,
because especially in people based service areas such as marketing, yeah,
mm,
people are buying into you, not just what you've done, but also who
yeah,
you are as a person,
yeah.
and what you want to be, yeah, what where you see that success going in your future career as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's some really solid advice, and I think you're absolutely right. Anybody, whether you're in your early stages in your marketing career or even at senior stage, you're never too long in the tooth to pick up new skills and learn and develop. And it's never too late to make changes. And I think, given the current situation of the market and how uneasy it's been for the last 12, 18 months, the amount of redundancies happening, you
Yeah,
do have to open yourself up to change and adaptation. And
yeah,
yeah, I think that's amazing advice. Thank you, Richard. So
pleasure.
um, I think hopefully today people will kind of get a bit more of an understanding as to you and your background. I think that's really exciting. I think you've had an amazing career so far, and I'm excited to see what you do with Nebula now, because you've had such an impact on all the businesses that you've worked for throughout your career. So now with Nebula, I think it's exciting to see what you're already doing and the impact that you're having. So thank you so much for your time today, Richard. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, as we say. And I hope people listen, and I hope people really enjoy and take something from today's call, because it's been really insightful. So thank you so much.
No, thanks for your time, Zoe. And as I say, I think providing these type of platforms to share different people's experiences, I think is a great thing. And also it makes us think about sort of some of the things we don't normally reflect on as well. So
Yeah.
it's yes, it's I wouldn't say it's quite a counselling session, but it's maybe close to one, right?
Absolutely, as long as it's not done any damage, that's you've got something positive out of it.
Well,
That's the main
all,
thing.
all positive, no damage at all, I'm sure.
Brilliant. Lovely stuff. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks for your time.